"2025 marks the 70th anniversary of the television show The Adventures of Robin Hood, starring Richard Greene. You can hear an in-depth discussion of the show on episode 27 of Into the Greenwood. It is genuinely one of my favorite episodes we have ever done. To celebrate the 70th anniversary, we'll be releasing a few of these sort of mini reviews of various episodes alongside several friends of the show throughout the rest of 2025. I hope you enjoy these little jaunts into the Sherwood Forest of yesteryear.
Robin Hood, riding through the glen. Robin Hood, with his band of men.
The Frightened Tailor is about this list that one of Robin's Confederates has. And this is one of the things I love about this episode, and something the show in general does really well, is it makes that world feel a little bit bigger, and it really showcases Robin Hood having this network of associates, people who he can rely on that are besides just the merry men. Because we see it with this Ned Carter fellow, we see it with the Tailor, we see it with Maid Marian, and it's really effective. It's something they do really well in the show.
Yeah, I think that is why, in some ways, Robin Hood works so much better in a episodic, longer narrative, because you can world build so well and showcase all the different aspects of the world where people need help. They need Robin. They need someone to protect them financially and sometimes physically. And with the Tailor, you also get to see the strength of how ordinary people in all different aspects can contribute to justice and to ending up to corruption, and even the strengths showcased. And hey, you don't have to be a fighter. You don't have to have a sword. Even a tailor can find creative ways to interfere.
Yes.
With
That's so the whole plot revolves around this list that Prince John wants and that the sheriff wants, that includes a list of everybody that's loyal to Richard instead of Prince John. And it is in the keeping of this fellow Ned, who hides in the tailor shop. He knows the tailor is loyal because his name is on the list. He hides, but the guards are like on the hunt for him. They're looking for him. He hides the list in the lining of a cloak that he finds in the tailor shop before trying to make a getaway, but he gets caught and arrested. And then it turns out, of course, that this cloak was one that the tailor was making for the sheriff, and it gets delivered to the sheriff. The tailor finds out about the note being in the lining because of his Snoopy assistant, and he warns Robin Hood about this, and they effect to go to Nottingham Castle. Marian is there as a noblewoman who has been invited by the sheriff, but is of course also allied with Robin Hood secretly. So there's a lot of things going on all at once. There's Marian, who is there trying to help while dining with the sheriff. There's Robin and the tailor, who go to the castle with Robin disguised as the tailor's apprentice, and the tailor going to be like, oh, I need to do something relating to this cloak. I need to mend it, or something, is how he gets through past the guards. And then there's also the actual apprentice, who decided he was going to betray his master for financial gain and let the sheriff know about this list in the hope of getting a reward. And so he goes to the castle as well. Although first Robin ties him up and leaves him in a closet, but he gets his way free. And then there's also the guy earlier who was arrested and in the dungeon that Robin is. So Robin is trying to rescue that guy and protect Marian and get this list that's hidden inside the lining of the cloak that the sheriff is wearing.
It's a solid episode. It's really well written. It has a lot of different dynamic factors all playing into the building tension of how do we protect this list, which is a little bit more than just a MacGuffin, and that it's literally the identities of everyone who could be a resistance to the sheriff. I also find it interesting that when they describe it, it's a list of everyone loyal to King Richard, which I think is like well,
I
like
think
is it wouldn't
it's the
that be a
idea is
pretty big list?
a list of people who are in notable positions. The tailor is on the list, but he's also the tailor that is appointed to the sheriff. So he's at least
Right.
has some proximity to a seat of power to somebody that is loyal to Prince John.
And
Um,
that's why it's interesting too, because when the heroes, our main characters, describe the list, they call it a list of everyone loyal to King Richard. When the sheriff describes the list to Marion, he calls it a list of everyone in league with Robin Hood. I
yeah.
thought that was a very telling language difference in how the sheriff is portraying the list to other people around him versus
Hmm.
what is the list practically in the eyes of the wider political leverage of the country's
Yeah.
shall we say, civil strife.
In an actual legal sense, there's nothing wrong with being on that list. Richard is still the legitimate king, but
Right.
if the sheriff can frame it as being in the league with outlaws, then
Yeah.
he changes the narrative. And Marion's name we know is also on the
It's
list.
also on that list. Yeah.
So that's part of why she's in danger being there.
Speaking of Marion, I will say, if you ever wonder, like, what does Marion do in this show? This episode is almost a perfect encapsulation of that. Marion is Robin Hood's love, but she is also a noble woman who essentially her character arc in almost every episode is she's playing this kind of spy for Robin where she's the noble woman and kind of does a fake femininity to the heirs of the corrupt nobles, but then uses that to shield herself and throw up a smokescreen to the very authentic femininity, which is her standing up to evil. So happy International Women's Day. But yeah, that is that I think this episode kind of perfectly encapsulates. If you're, hey, what does Marion kind of do in this show? What's her role? It's this episode.
Yeah.
She dresses up more like Robin, almost as the more male Robin Hood design costume when she's with them in Sherwood. But then when she's with the sheriff, that's when she's wearing dresses and oh my lord, and then she plays, oh, I spilled your wine, I'm so clumsy, and say, let me take the cloak, and then she and even her voice change, like when she's talking to the sheriff, how she talks to Robin. I think this encapsulates very well what Marion's role functions in this version of the story.
And I think it's worth pointing out that not just with this episode, with this idea of this list, but in general throughout the show, while she does very little action, like very little fighting,
Hmm.
she is in general in danger more than most characters in the show
Hmm.
because she is really putting herself in this position as a spy and this go
Yeah.
between other nobles and Robin Hood. And this happens regularly throughout the show in lots of different ways. It's not just the same story done with different dressings.
Yeah.
And she's always in danger of being discovered. There are a couple of times where she gets suspected and, has to find ways to defend herself or deflect blame. And like, she is really playing a very dangerous game throughout the entire show.
Yeah, I love Bernadette O'Farrell's Marion. I think she's one of my favorite on-screen Marions, and I think she does a
Absolutely.
great job of not only portraying Marion as someone who is very caring and very noble-hearted, but is ironically enough a good actress.
Yeah.
Like an actress playing someone who is actually a good actress, to be the spy role that Marion serves for the
Hmm.
Robin in this version of the story. So
And
yeah.
yeah, and her romance with Robin is quite believable. There's a minor kind of love triangle aspect with the sheriff as well. And this episode does more with it than most do. It comes up a couple other times. He is
Yeah.
clearly interested in her and makes makes passes at her in genteel sort of ways. I think that, and there is an episode where he does offer to marry her And it's actually like to get her out of trouble when she is being suspected of being a spy. It's a really great episode.
Yeah, he's the Richard Armitage to
Yeah.
her Lucy Lewis.
I was thinking he was the Basil Rathbone to her Lisa
Oh.
Evelyn. And yeah, it's not played up a lot throughout the show. So it's not like a really overworn love triangle element, but it's present.
Yeah,
And but her
that's a
romance,
flavor.
yeah. And it feels genuine because she is really charming as Lady Marian. Yeah, Bernadette O'Farrell absolutely knocks it out of the park. She did leave the show after the second season, and in the third and fourth seasons, Patricia Driscoll plays the character, and she just kind of slides into it. She also does a fantastic job as well.
Yeah, I think overall everyone was good in this. There's a lot of like character acting in these shows where someone comes in just to kind of play a very, archetypal stock character almost, and they used a lot of the same actors
Oh yeah,
over and over again. So you can just tell like, oh, that's the guy who plays Derwent in the show, but this
he's got a
time
wig
come
on.
on. Yeah, a new wig this week. One thing I did like about this episode is that everyone does seem for the most part to be kind of their own characters. If I watched more, I'd probably recognize them in other episodes, but for this one, it does kind of feel like, oh, this is this guy. He's just the Tailor. I don't
Mhm.
recognize him as being Derwent or anyone else. And everyone, I think, did a fine job doing their roles. Yeah, just overall, just a solid episode.
Yeah, and you were pointing out how the whole like, oh, everybody can play a role kind of thing, and they really lean into that with the role of the tailor,
Hmm.
because at various points he sews a couple of guards' shoes together so they can't get up and stop Robin Hood when he tries to rescue the prisoner. He uses his shears to snip the strings of the crossbows so they can't be shot at when they're trying to escape. And he even
More people.
places a thimble over the top of the sheriff's dagger at one point,
I love
which
that one.
keeps the sheriff from being able to stab somebody. It's
Yeah.
so good.
Three instances where he uses nonviolence to still fight, oddly enough. And I also like that it's The Frightened Tailor is the name of the episode, and I think it plays off maybe the themes of the story of the brave little tailor,
Oh, very
where
much, which I love. That's
um,
absolutely one of my favorite stories.
did you notice too how if you count the number of people he stops, it's technically it might actually be more than seven. But the brave little tailor famously has like seven in one blow, right? And
Right?
if you count, you have the guy that they tie up, at least in the
his
closet,
his
the
his
apprentice.
apprentice, Waldo.
Yep, that's one. You've got him tying the two shoes together. That's two. So now we're up to three. You've got the sheriff. He puts the thimble on. That's four. And then if you just say three of those crossbow guys who get their string cut, that's seven. So you literally do have a brave little tailor who takes on seven bad guys in this.
Sure. Well, let's give it to him.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, let's say they intended it that way. There's probably way more than three guys who he cuts the strings of, but
Yeah, he
whatever.
cut a lot of crossbow strings. It was
Yeah,
great.
which is also like I don't think I've seen other Robin Hood stories where they just cut their strings. I'm like, that's man, what a smart idea. Like they should do that more.
Yeah, yeah. Very classic move.
Just cut the crossbow strings. Why didn't they all think of that before?
Yeah, so great episode, lots of fun, very charming, also silly. These were shows that were aimed at kids. This was
Hmm.
children's entertainment, but it's well written, well presented children's entertainment. And the sets look good, the costumes look good. Earlier in our recording, we were talking about how the 2006 series looks. And, some of it is also like, yeah, this is set dressing, it's very theatrical, and it's not being filmed in high res and it's black and white. So, probably if you took those same costumes and same sets and filmed them with a more modern camera and full light and color, they wouldn't hold up as well. But for what they were doing, they work, they look good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you're gonna pick any episode of this show to watch to just get a flavor of what is this show about, what is the dynamic like A plus B equals C formula of the writing style of like the on this week's adventure. I think this is just a good episode to start with. It's
Yeah.
usually someone local has a problem. Usually there's some type of intrigue of loyalty with the true king.
Hmm.
Robin steps in to help it, usually going in disguise or sneaking into a castle or something. Marion plays a role where she pretends to not be able to handle anything, and yet she's actually handling everyone by
Yeah.
spying the way she's doing it.
She's often the one that brings them news about somebody being in trouble.
Yes. And overall, we see how like common people and like the simple things are usually what help us overcome the big, proud, strong, corrupt forces. Which in
Hmm.
this case was, hey, just a tailor doing little tailor things. Like that's
Yep.
all.
And there's, a bit of action with the jailbreak and the, escape from the castle and everything. They're short episodes too. I think this one
Yeah.
was 24 minutes. So again, children's entertainment, but it means that they're breezy. They pack a lot in. So they get in a lot of story, they get in a lot of character development. You get a sense of who this Tailor is, you get a sense of who his kind of slimy apprentice is, you get a sense of who the sheriff is, all during this time while Robin feels like himself. It's ah, I love the show. I love its presentation of these characters.
One thing that I also am thinking about now as I kind of reflect on this episode is this Robin in particular, the 1950s Adventures of Robin Hood, Richard Greene Robin, he does a lot of rescuing. Like I
Yes.
feel like a lot of other Robins, it's usually more some well not all, but like sometimes the Robin character is more here to fight someone. It's like, oh, here's the bad guy of the week. Robin's gonna go fight them. Or here's the big, scary thing we have to overcome, and somehow it's gonna end with Robin doing some crazy martial prowess thing, whether that's shooting a million things with his bow or,
Sword
sword fighting a
fighting.
million guys, or oh, who's my sword fight of the week, shall we say. This Robin, he doesn't always have sword fights. Yeah, there's lots of sword
They
fights
definitely
in,
come up. He had
but
a very brief scuffle in the sheriff in this episode, and in
yeah.
other episodes, they kind of have more proper duels and things.
Yeah, but there's
Uh,
almost always, or there's more. I'll just put it this way: it feels like, and I could be wrong, but it feels like there's more rescues than there are fights, which I kind of like. There's more of a focus on. It's not. I don't really care if I have to fight you. I just want to. I just want to help these other people. And if you
well,
get in the way, then I will fight you. But
yeah, I mean, I think to your point, Robin and the tailor get into the castle with him disguised as the apprentice. He does a great job of like he's hanging his head and just kind of like acting like an apprentice and looks very easy to overlook. But they're going in with like a bolt of cloth and a pair of shears and a needle and sewing kit. Like
yeah,
they he doesn't he's not smuggling a weapon in. He doesn't have a
right,
bow. He doesn't have a sword because he's going in disguised as this tailor's apprentice, and the tailor's not a warrior. He doesn't have these weapons. So
yeah,
they're not going in to fight. They're going in to rescue the guy and get the thing and get out.
yep,
Um and that's the mission. And they go to rescue the guy, even though they don't have any weapons.
yeah. I like that by his nature, this Robin is he's all about care. He cares about people, so he's more interested in rescuing and finding care through that use of force
Hmm.
than he is just, oh, who's the bad guy? I'm gonna go fight them. Even like these other people, he could just go in and beat them up or something, but let's just tie their shoes together. Let's cut their bowstrings. Let's
Do something clever. Yeah.
yeah. And I do love that line of his where like, oh, my name's on the list, and Robin replies like, well, my name's on the list. It's like the most wanted man in all of England is like, oh boy, my name's on the list. Uh-oh. What if they come for me?
And yeah,
That's a cheeky joke. I like that.
that's one of the other things. I mean, it's not like oh, haha, this show is just like hilarious laugh a minute, but it's still well written enough that things like humor come through.
Yeah.
I love the moment where Maid Marian is trying to figure out how to get the cloak away from the sheriff, and he notices that there's something in the lining, and he's like, "Wait, what's this here?" And she's just like, oh, this is the newest fashion trend. It's this type of stiffening that they put in the trim from Italy. And his immediate response was to be outraged because he had paid for French trim instead of Italian.
Yeah. Yeah.
That cracked me up.
Yeah, there's a
It was
good
such good like thinking on her feet from Marion's part.
yeah.
And but didn't work because the sheriff wanting something French.
Yeah, there's and I think the humor also, like, we're watching this in 2025 and this was a show from the 50s, like literally 70 years ago. And the humor was dry enough then that it still kind of has that timeless feel. Like there's that cheeky, just dry humor that the British are really good with. And yeah, 70 years later it still holds up.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing is it's the humor that is brought out by the characters and the situation. It's not forced humor and it's not referential humor.
Right.
Yeah. No, great episode pick, Mike. Thanks. Enjoying some Adventures of Robin Hood with me.
It was my pleasure. Do you have time for one more?
I
Because
sure
watching this
do.
made me really want to watch The Youthful Menace with you, but we definitely don't have to.
We absolutely can. Um,
Yay! Yeah. Oh, it makes me
it's
so
a
happy.
Saturday night. What do I have else to do other than watch Robin Hood?
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, do you seriously have time? Do you want to do it now?
Yeah, no, I'd love to.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I was thinking like as soon as you said when I was like, "Are you familiar with this one?" Because I knew those were probably the two best ones to like to offer. You were like, "Yeah, let's do the Frank Taylor." Like there was a small part of me was like, "Oh, like okay," like, and then I was like, oh, "Let's watch it." Like, and I really enjoyed it. But like there was a part of me that was like, at the end, I'm gonna ask if he wants to watch Youthful Menace with me because I really want to hear what he thinks about it. So, oh,
Yeah,
that's great.
yeah, yeah. All right. So, the Youthful Menace. This
Yes.
is Edwin, Marion's cousin, is scornful of her claims about Robin's allegiance to King Richard. To confirm her knowledge, Marion takes him to the outlaw camp. That proves to be a mistake, as Edwin's presence becomes a threat to Robin's freedom. That is the plot. Originally aired April 21st, 1958. This is season 3, episode 30. So we get, again, Richard Greene as Robin Hood, of course. This time we will have Patricia Driscoll as Maid Marian.
Yeah.
We have Peter Kerr as Edwin, Archie Duncan as Little John, Victor Wolfe as Derwent, and John Gattrall and Graham Stewart as Peasant and Guard. This was directed by Robert Day and written by Howard Dimsdale. You know, there's so much discussion that goes on these days relating to things like examples of positive masculinity. And this is such an episode showcasing a Robin Hood that's an example of positive masculinity.
Yeah.
Because
This
it's
was
so much about like what it means to be a man.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely probably connected to that theme a lot more when I was younger. But man, even rewatching it, just with everything going on in the world, it just feels ever more relevant this episode. And yeah, one thing that's special to me about this episode is that it's an episode that really digs into what makes Robin's belief system, like what's at the heart of his views on honor and justice, or his identity as a man in some ways, like what is he here to do? It's his kind of version of, Flynn has that scene we've talked about a lot with Reward. And it's like
Mhm.
that there you go. That's who this person is as a
Yeah.
character. For me, in a lot of ways, this episode does that for Richard Greene's Robin, where it cuts to the core of how does he not just, maybe beat someone with a sword, but how does he almost convert them to being someone who thinks and views the world like he does and behaving therefore in a more heroic manner. So this to me is the Richard Greene episode that deals with the heart of his Robin Hood.
Yeah. There was a lot of it that was so much about you just do the right thing because it's the right thing. You put
Yeah.
trust in people when they've proven themselves to be trustworthy. You give people second chances. You win the argument by by example, not by trying to beat somebody down with your rhetoric, much less beat them down physically. You
Yeah.
just showcase. You just lead by example. And you be trustworthy yourself. You be that man of honor. And also just at the end of the day, you do the right thing, even when it's hard or inconvenient. Even if it is making things worse for you and for your friends, you don't do the thing that you know is wrong.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the writing of this episode is especially strong, not just in the dialogue, which this is obviously a very dialogue heavy episode. It's there's not a lot of action in this episode. It's really just like Robin and Edwin kind of having a great mental philosophical chess game with each other, and even though that writing is good, I also think just the concept is good of, ooh, what do you do in this scenario where here's a person who now knows your secret, but
Mhm.
not friendly, but they're also a kid, and it's Marion's nephew or cousin, so it's not like a guard who maybe a somewhat faceless stormtrooper. You could like, just okay.
Yeah, there is that guard that gets killed at the end, and they kind of just
Yeah.
walk by his body, and I was like, "Ooh, that felt a little cold." But
Yeah, especially when the whole thing has been like, well, everyone's, like people can be changed. If there's no hope for the boys to change, there's no hope for the men. And yeah, and then the irony of then, oh, it does end with a sword fight against other men. But yeah, like it's a good problem for Robin Hood to suddenly have to deal with, like, and for Marion to deal with too. Ooh, someone we don't want to know our secret knows it, and we have them here at the camp. Oh, what do I do? Like, how do I?
I love the moment when Edwin had tried to escape, and they caught him and brought him back, and he's like, "You can kill me for all I care." And they're discussing off to the side what they're going to do. And Robin's like, "Well, Edwin said that he didn't care if we'd kill him." And Little John and Maid Marian are like, "Robin, we
Oh,
can't do
man.
that."
Like,
What?
well,
And he's
the
like,
kid's the only
"Hey,
one who's gotten a solution.
he's the only one who offered a solution, even if it's an acceptable one."
Yeah.
The writing was like, oh, just so we've watched so many movies where we've like struggled to pick out like what is a witty line of dialogue, what is
Hmm.
something that somebody has said at some point that had an ounce of cleverness. Man, this episode just had it in spades.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite lines from the entire show.
Yeah, and the thing about honor not just being a coat that one can take on and take off, and the line you said about there's no hope to educate the boys, what hope do we have for the men? And just like again and again, just the line about like Robin admits that there's probably a better swordsman than him. He's not the best quarterstaff fighter. He conveniently doesn't mention how good he is at archery. But then Edward's like, but why do they follow you if you're not the best? Maybe they trust me. It's
Yeah.
it's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question of how do you bring someone who opposes you into a sphere of maybe not even like aligning themselves with you, but at least like trusting you as well. I think you're a decent person. I don't want to harm you.
Hmm.
Which is kind of what he starts with at the beginning, where he's like, Edwin, like it is possible for two men to disagree and still respect one another. I mean, that's a very relevant sentence
Yeah,
to come,
yeah. You're not wrong about this feeling relevant.
especially for someone as Robin Hood, who's seen as like usually portrayed as like a very revolutionary character, rebellious character, and yet here he is wanting to have civil discourse and mentor someone who's different from him. and he's not like lording it over like him that, oh, I'm better than you, I could kill you easy. At one point he even like offers him, oh, like, if you don't, here's my sword, take it.
My
This
word means more to me than my sword.
Yeah, this is definitely, I think there's so many times I think people try to put Robin Hood in like some type of John Wayne mentality, even if they think they're not doing John Wayne, they kind of are, where it's like the, I'm the toughest, I'm the baddest, I'm the this, I don't care about anyone's opinion but my own, I can. And this Robin is just not like that. And it's fine to have Robin, maybe do a more John Wayne-ish character, but I love this Robin so much. This
Hmm.
is this is the type of Robin that I feel more like following,
Yeah.
or that I feel more like at least listening to. Yeah. It's such a good lesson. And again, what we said about the other episode, it does feel so real and authentic to probably what these writers were really going through. Like, I'm sure this was some conversation somebody had with a teenager about like, well, no, like poor people should be treated for that. Well, like if they're not making money, you can almost just feel like these were conversations people were having with teenagers at the time, and that we're still having.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, boys who want to just feel like they're men and therefore think it's all about power and beating people, and it's like that's not what health
Hmm.
it's not what a healthy mindset of being a man is, in my opinion.
Yeah. N- no, and it reminded me of something like Ted Lasso that was so
Yeah.
much about Ted, winning over this team and helping improve them by just being a nice guy.
Hmm.
And this was so much about Robin winning over somebody mostly by doing it a couple of different ways, which I also liked because he does the thing where he's just is nice and it's just like, hey, I'm going to treat you. You are the 16-year-old who wants to be treated seriously as an adult. Therefore, I'm going to treat you as a serious adult. He doesn't talk down to him. He takes him at his word. He speaks with him openly and honestly when he wants to sword fight. And he's trying to like trash talk Robin about like using blunted blades. And Robin has another great line about courage having nothing to do with being willing to take foolish risks. It's it's so good. And then, Robin beats him in the sword fight and the kid's all pouty, but Robin doesn't gloat. He like say, hey, well, clearly you got a lot to learn. He just like is like, no, you are really good. Like he
Yeah.
tells him repeatedly that he's really good. He only won because he has more experience. He compliments his technique while they're sword fighting. He is being positive,
Yeah.
and treating him in a positive way. And he lets him keep his sword, treats him as somebody he trusts. And then when he violates that trust, it switches, but in that very reasonable way, like, oh, you have proven you're untrustworthy. Now I have to treat you like you're somebody who's untrustworthy. And he shames him, but in that just very, I'm shaming you for the thing you have done. I'm not like picking on you. I'm just being realistic about there being these repercussions to your actions.
Yeah. Yeah, this Robin, Richard Greene's Robin has sometimes been described as almost like a more paternal Robin, or the cool uncle Robin. And I think this episode definitely leads up to that vibe. I'm curious if you think that the Robin of this episode still lines up with the other Richard Greene portrayals in previous episodes. Just because even that one line, well, where it's like, oh, you want to use practice swords? And he's like, well, courage has nothing to do with not taking foolish risks. Do you think a dialogue like that is still in line with the way Robin has behaved for the most part in this show? Like, does
That's a
that feel like something the character of Robin Hood would say? Or does,
that's a
you know,
really good question
yeah,
because I feel like for the most part, this feels consistent to the Robin Hood we see on the show,
yes.
but with the caveat that he has dialed up certain things
Hmm.
because he is in mentor mode
Right.
because he is trying to be a role model, because he is trying to present things in the best way possible, and he's not just doing things for himself. If he is off on an adventure on his own, he might do things a little bit more risky. But if it like involves trying to save somebody or trying to lead his men, or in this case, mentor Edwin, then he will pull things back.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it kind of reminds me. Are you familiar with the Uncharted games?
I saw the movie.
Okay.
I
Uh that's fine. Definitely check
I
out. I think you
um
love the games. Nathan Drake is absolutely like a Robin Hood-esque type character. He's basically modern Indiana Jones. And there's, oh man, I don't want to spoil anything for you, but basically you see him do all this fun, very like devil may care, epic action stuff. And he always has like a kind of witty, dry joke about like all the craziness he's living through. At the end, he's talking to a daughter, and like she's like wanting to go out and be an adventure, and he seems like this very serious, responsible dad. And she's like, "Wait, you did this stuff?" He's like, "Well, and like you as the viewer, the player are just laughing. And I think this Robin gives that vibe of he said that dialogue maybe isn't consistent with everything he's done, but he's in mentor mode. He's trying to put on his best, most mature dad energy for this kid.
yeah.
And then I think had this episode had more time, which I think certain things could have maybe been there could have been more to explore with this arc, and there could have even been more to explore with the resolution of the story, which I've thought on in a minute. I think it would have been fun to see Robin saying all these responsible things to Edwin, and then Little John being like, "Yeah, well, what about when you did this?" And then, like bringing up all the stuff, and Edwin's like, "Wait, you fought like this many guys? Wait, you broke into this castle like 3 times in one week? Like." But I thought you just said, well, Edwin, and watching Robin have to suddenly try to defend his own badassery, if you will, with the
Mhm.
trying to be responsible and teach him to. That could be a really fun dynamic to play, and
Yeah.
also that would provide some nice fuel for Edwin's growth as a character, understanding the dynamics of Robin as a character. He's not just, oh, I'm responsible, but he's also just not like devil may care. He's a complex person. He's a well-written, holistic character.
Yeah,
Um,
like I said, he says, "Oh, I'm not the best quarterstaff fighter in the band," and he sorry, he downplays his swordsmanship skill, but doesn't say anything about how like, "Oh yeah, but I'm like the best archer by a by a mile." And
Watch
the
me hit an acorn from a mile away. Yeah. One thing I do wish this episode would have actually had would have been more time.
yeah,
Because it's a
definitely.
very obviously complex situation that the characters find themselves in, and the resolution is pretty quick. It's a pretty
Mhm.
fast turnaround. And I think it also never answers the question of, well, can Edwin get his land back? Like maybe
Yeah,
they could have explored that more. And he's not in any more episodes. I don't think, if I remember.
I don't remember either. I don't think
How
so.
does his education in England go? Does he ever get the land back? What
Yeah,
could have
another scene with him and Marion at the very least would have been really nice.
Right. And what could have worked would have been Edwin's like, no, you're right. I'm not going to give you up. I don't want to do this. Like, I've learned that like the true maturity is being able to sacrifice yourself for others, which is the one thing he realizes all the rich people around him would never do. Ultimately, that kind of power will really never sacrifice themselves for others. It'll find ways to sacrifice other people or blame other people or do anything but actually give themselves up for power to love and protect others. Edwin learning that lesson is a great resolution for his maturity. But then Robin could say, no, wait, actually turn me in. That's how we're going to get the money. But like, I don't want to turn you in. I've decided I won't. No, no, no. Here's what we'll do. And then it shows Edwin turning Robin in, pretend, haha, I've caught you, outlaw. And then it cuts to now that Edwin's in the castle, he gets the reward. Yay, I've got the money, and Robin's in the dungeon. But then that night, Edwin like goes to the cell and is like, okay, like the plan's working. I got the money. Now I'll get you out. And he still they still use Robin as the, the bait to get the money for Edwin or something.
which would be which they absolutely like could do as another episode or something, and doing that would be really interesting to explore with the concepts of honor and honesty,
Hmm.
because that's so much an important part of this episode, that a man's word is his bond kind of thing. Would it be okay to trick the sheriff?
Yeah.
Is that would that be dishonorable to, do that? So I think there would need to be, to make that convincing and work, there would need to be like this whole other narrative part of the arc that also involves him just understanding more about Robin Hood and why he's an outlaw, and who the sheriff is, and why the sheriff is the way he is, and why what Robin Hood is doing is worthwhile. That being an outlaw is the honorable thing in this situation.
I know that they did Will Scarlet in the show. They had two Will Scarlets that they did. But man, this I know that Will is usually, at least in Howard Pyle's, he's like Robin's younger cousin or nephew. This almost feels like it would have been a great way to do Will Scarlet for this show. Have him come in as like the young cousin, and then his character arc throughout the show is him being mentored by Robin.
Oh,
Uh,
that's
the
that's
more
basically the plot of the novel I'm writing.
oh, there you go. Hey, I didn't know that. That's funny.
Yeah, yeah,
I
no,
mean, well, I've known you were working on stuff. I didn't know that's how you're gonna do Will Scarlet, though.
yeah,
That's great.
yeah, no, it's the he's young, he's 18 instead of 16. Yeah, I don't want to say too much, but it is
Yeah.
a lot that it is about him being this kind of upper class person who then has to learn from Robin about why Robin is still an honorable character, and being an outlaw is the right move, not just for Robin to be doing, but for himself to be doing as well.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I'm glad I showed you this episode then.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that possible connection there. Yeah, it's an episode that had a lot to say, and it said it very well, but definitely suffered from having to cram it into 24 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you were to do, I mean, it's like taking the entire first season of Ted Lasso and trying to do it in a single episode, because
Yeah.
this is before we did a lot of long form television shows and narrative arcs. Everything has to be encapsulated, everything has to be one and done.
Which is kind of what people had to do back then with TV shows because that was the format and that was what they had to do. So I think it's important for anyone who maybe goes back and watches older TV shows or, older content like this, don't judge it too harshly. They had a very limited formula they had to adhere to. And they didn't have a lot of the freedoms and the budgets and the talent that a lot of modern TV shows get to use. So, be fair to them when you watch them, understand what they had to work with. Something I never picked up on as a kid, but one of my favorite Spider-Man shows of all time, the Christopher Daniel Barnes one from the 90s, Spider-Man was never allowed to punch. So they had to like write all these sequences and fight scenes, and you can't write Spider-Man throwing a punch in it because it's like a Fox cartoon kids show. So they weren't allowed to do that for and this old Robin Hood show, it had so many things it had to follow with rules of like you can show this, you can't show this, it has to be this long, these many breaks have to happen. So yeah, for having to tell this kind of story with those constructs, I think they did a great job. It would be amazing to see what this type of writing talent could do with a modern screenplay option. In
Hmm.
some ways, this episode in particular feels like a precursor to what we'd later see in something like Star Trek with
Oh
Kirk
yeah.
and
Oh gosh, yes. Oh my goodness. This is
yeah, like
this
this.
is the most Star Trekky episode of Robin Hood that I could basically imagine, given
Yeah,
that it doesn't happen on a starship and there's nobody with weird prosthetics on their face.
right.
It
Yep.
is the way Robin acts is so much how I could imagine Kirk acting.
Hmm. Yeah. So
To a lesser, lesser extent Picard, just because his modus operandi is different. But yeah, wow, this was so much a Kirk kind of Robin right here.
I got you, buddy. I know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. We're both Star Trek fans, to anyone listening, as you can
They're used to it. 'Cause every time Rick's on the podcast, we almost will always tangent into Star Trek at some
tell.
point. Star Trek and or Doctor Who.
Yeah. Oh
Which
man.
and the previous episode that we watched, The Frightened Tailor, so much made me think of Doctor Who because of that whole like non-violent going in, just being
Oh yeah, yeah.
clever and getting out of the situation without having to throw punches, using like random tools like the shears. It felt like such a Doctor Who kind of move.
I wonder, and I don't know the history of these shows as well, but I wonder if there's anyone who was part of the 1950s Robin Hood who ended up in Doctor Who or in Star Trek in some capacity. Is there one writer that they've linked to all three?
Oh, I don't know of any
Like a
writers
producer?
linked. That would be worth looking into. But there's a very direct link with Patrick Troughton.
Yeah, Doctor Who.
Yeah, he was the second Doctor, and he is one of the character actors that you mentioned earlier who shows up repeatedly in the show.
Was he also the first Robin Hood ever?
He was also the first television Robin.
TV?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
from it was like 53 or 52. Um,
yeah.
I think there's less than 8 minutes of existing footage at this point.
Right.
Uh,
I think Will found it and posted it or something.
yeah, and it's cute. It's nice. Like I like it, but there's not much of it. But yeah, Patrick Troughton was the first televised version of Robin Hood.
And is his great grandson much? Is it Sam?
I think just grandson, but yeah.
Oh, grandson. Yeah.
Yeah, and then his grandson is
Much. And
Sam Troughton, who played
yeah.
Much the Miller's son in the 2006 series.
Yeah. Wow. Cool stuff.
Yeah.
We are
Uh,
nerds. Oh
what? I
man.
have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, good episode. I'm so glad. Thank you for taking up more of your time to watch that one with me.
Oh,
That's my favorite.
Feared by the bad, loved by the good. Robin Hood, Robin Hood.